Chuck, could you have our opening prayer, please?
Sure. We all bow your heads. Heavenly Father, we thank you. We thank you so much for your Son, Jesus Christ, who offers us redemption, who offers us forgiveness when we've done something wrong. We can talk to him at any time, day or night. He's there for us. We need to go to him more often, Lord, and he's there for us, and God, thank you so much. Please watch over this meeting. Let each one of us feel your presence. Make the right decision based on the needs of our citizens. And in your Son's most holy and precious name, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Chuck.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You're on a roll, Chuck. Huh? You're on a roll.
Amen, brother.
I would ask that everyone sign in, please, if you have not already done so. Okay. On to our 2023 budget review. We have some things that we need to address. Before we kind of get into the anybody want to bring that to light?
Okay, so in your packets, you have one that says budget one, Form 1 budget estimate. It also matches the one that has the red and blue, which is your Form 3. This is the one that will be advertised. It is recommended to advertise it as is. It's high, even if there's cuts that are made, this will cover and be any cushions that are needed. These two match. This is what you guys did. This is what it was entered into LAO and DLGF with Gateway, and these two match. So if you make any changes tonight, we have until 9 o'clock in the morning to present them with DLGF and make those changes, and that will keep us on schedule for the budget hearing or the public hearing on October the 11th.
So it's best to advertise high, right?
On the budget Form 1, at your last meeting, there were adjustments that were made. The insurance had been entered twice into the Commissioner's Fund. That was reduced, 1.5,513,000, something like that. So that brought actually their budget down to $913,000. So that's the biggest difference you're seeing in what was 19 million down to the 17,966,696 that it currently is. There's still some minor adjustments and anything you guys want to cut. However, it's still better to advertise it high, which is what the state is wanting.
Also, we had factored in a 5% increase in the insurance, and that stayed flat. Am I correct on that?
It stayed flat. It's my understanding that there's not been an adjustment received on the dental and optical. Is that correct, Jim? Still sitting out there. I think there hasn't been a reduction done in it, and for advertising purposes, it might be better to leave that one there. You can always go back and fine tune it. It's a place you can cut if the state comes back and says, you need to cut X amount of dollars. Or if you want to get it closer and you want to reduce some of the funds, you can go fund by fund or the ones that have insurance in the line items. But there was a 5% cushion that was put in there.
So my biggest fear here is back to that advertisement, and I know we're spending some time on that discussion, but for instance, on the spreadsheet you have Sheila, lit economic development's at 804,000. Is that what it's going to be advertised at? or is there gonna be a cushion in whatever number you put in gateway
This is what it is advertised
at the 804?
at the 804.
Okay, so there would be an example where there really isn't a cushion, and I would recommend we advertise like that at $1 million, just to have the cushion, because we don't know yet. There may be an emergency need or something we need to move into that fund from the general or somewhere else, to make something work later in the process. So maybe we should advertise a bit higher on that one, just to be safe. You know, sheriff had a very razor thin margin, it's at 3.1, but, you know, maybe we should advertise that at 3.2 or 3.3. I'm just, the cushions are what concern me, on some of these.
But if the projection doesn't cover the cushion, I mean, and granted, it's still higher than we want it to be, but do any of the projections suggest that those numbers can be supported?
Well, lit economic development, yes,
Okay.
that one's easy.
Okay.
But sheriff, probably not, you know, cause it's already razor thin. Same thing with motor vehicle highway. But even if we're off $2,000, anything over these dollar amounts would be an automatic no. And what if we needed that extra 1 or 2,000 and.
And there's nothing
shut the
hurting us or
door?
stopping us, we could do that, it's not an issue, right? It's-
Unless you advertise high. But if you don't, if you leave the numbers the way they are, then you're stuck with these numbers.
Is that a motion then?
Well, some of them are sufficient and some maybe aren't. I don't know if there's any value in just blanket, like,
No, I mean,
Figure a
you mentioned three
percentage?
particular ones though, so I'm assuming that you have suggestions.
well, I would suggest lit economic development at $1 million.
Which one are you looking at, by
This
the way?
is in the middle at the bottom, 1112.
Thank you.
And then, you know, motor vehicle highway, maybe at 3 million. And again, I'm just throwing numbers out here. Sheriff, maybe 3.25. And, and then maybe the general, at 4.5. I mean, does that sound? These are just advertising only.
I mean, if it's not gonna hurt us to do per month, I mean, the only reason I asked about the projection is, you know, I was kinda hoping we'd have an idea of what we're gonna do, you know what I mean?
Yeah, those are the biggies, you know, for us, I think, and that would give us some flexibility.
I will say I worked really hard on the highway funds, all 4 of theirs. Almost positive that those 4 are gonna be approved as they
Okay,
are.
That's good.
They were comparing them to revenues, they were looking at the rest of this year's, what is coming in, what's projected to be estimated rollover in funds. So they were very confident that even in the 800,000 that has been cut the last couple of years, they were pretty confident with what the revenues were, that those were gonna be carried. So even raising that one to 3 million, I think you're good. It's not that much above the 2.9 that's there.
And that's not saying it'll end up at 3 million at all, and I don't want it to.
Right.
But if what if we miss something and it's a $10,000 expense and we're done at the 2.92, we're limited.
So is that a motion?
So I'll make a motion that we advertise those 4 specific funds at the amounts we spoke of. General fund, 4.5 million, lit economic development, 1 million, PSAP sheriff, 1170 at 3.25 million, and motor vehicle highway, 1176 at 3 million.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor? Motion carried.
And then do we need a motion to proceed with everything else? Or what kind of action do you need on record tonight?
That you're submitting or approving the budgets that are in front of you to be submitted to DLGF for public hearings, because the public can ask for copies of these budgets to see what was approved for tonight.
Now, if we may,
Well,
oh, I was just gonna ask a question. Now, if we decide we want to cut at certain places, I mean, are we stuck on these numbers then if we pass this tonight?
You can always cut, you can't go higher.
Right.
Okay.
You can always reduce. You can always change the rates if you see that you wanna cut, if the state comes back and says, we're gonna cut one of the funds, and again, they're primarily looking at the top 10 funds that are on there, the lower numbers, they're looking at what's part of the levied funds is their main priority. If those rates adjust, or you can adjust them when they send back the 1782 notice and say, hey, you gotta cut or you gotta do this, those can be adjusted at that time. But you only have the 10-day window to make those cuts, which is why we scheduled an extra meeting in October. We never know when the budgets are gonna come in. Usually it's been the end of November, early December, so you might have to call an emergency meeting to stay within that 10-day window. But if not, you're stuck with those tax rates if you don't make changes and present them. So there are places to cut. Anton has sent emails. There were a few places in the circuit court and those that needed corrected that weren't entered, but again, we can correct those. We can correct those in the morning on the Teams meeting thing. They're minimal amounts, so it's not like it's gonna add a lot to the changes or to it. And again, it's better to advertise it high and be able to come back and make those cuts if they say you need to cut.
What do we require when we do these two forms? Do we need to add the numbers that we just marked for advertisements?
You can approve the budget one form total, include, and then in addition to the 4 increases that you just made a motion for, you will add them to it to submit to the state tomorrow.
So moved.
I second that.
Motion made by Chuck, seconded by Nick. Do you have any questions on that?
Well, so, till the public knows what we're doing, essentially our next step after advertisement is to dial the numbers back down, fine tune them. We've got our health insurance numbers we know we have targets for. There's some unfinished business, some items that we need to address, some of the wish list items and things like that. But that'll all be in our October meetings, that's what that's for. And so we have time to do that. This first step is just getting through the door and getting that advertisement out there so we can work from there.
Any other questions?
Well, I think ultimately it falls under the budget, but based on conversations today and accusations and such over the weekend, the transfer for the highway department, I think we need to put a hold on it until we dig deeper and figure things out.
I agree. And, but do we need to, does that go along with?
I don't think that really has anything to do with this at the moment.
So
I think
Where
we
else is
should
it gonna fall under?
Yeah.
Probably whatever you wanna bring up after this vote.
All right, well, let's go ahead with the vote then.
All those in favor? All those opposed? No, motion carried. Okay, now we can bring that up.
Can I ask one question for you?
Yes.
What about budget form 2? Are we required to do anything beyond that, Madam Auditor?
No, those are just the estimated revenues.
So Jennings Township budget.
Do we wanna address what,
Now you're-
Probably just to stick with the agenda and then whatever
okay,
additional business we need to address would be.
Is the Jennings Township budget just the approval?
yeah, it was kinda.
It, as Miranda's email explained, when you guys approved this, the question she had was, were we holding them at the 2022? Did we realize that there were increases, and it also put them at the max levies?
Mhm.
So the decision you, again, have to make is per her email that I give you copies of. You can either allow the increases, or you can hold them to the prior year's budget and levies.
So when she came in the other day, she said in the verbal context that there was no change.
Right,
Is that correct?
that's what I understood.
But it turns out that what was entered into Gateway did have an increase, and it was not much, right? $600-700.
$100 in the general fund and $500 in the fire territory.
But we already voted to proceed.
Yeah, on the assumption that it was.
So what prevails in that situation? Is it what was filed with DLGF, or was it the verbal? You know, how do we, because we don't want to put ourselves into a weird situation with,
This is what was filed based on your motion. However, per DLGF, you can change your motion. You can make it go back to stay at the 2022 and at the same levies, or you can approve it, agree to approve it. She just wants to know that you're okay if it is staying the way that it is, but it is maxing out the levies.
so our choices are you can affirm the decision we already made, which would mean zero change. Or we can
Hold them to the
basically
prior
approve
years.
of what was filed, which was a small increase. And the DLGF's okay with either one?
Either way.
Okay.
But you have to make that decision tonight.
I make a motion that Jennings Township would approve the small increase. Understanding that there was a misunderstanding in the initial vote.
I second that.
Motion made by Chuck, seconded by Nick. I just have one question. Do we know what the increase was for?
The 500 was in the fire territory, because it's mostly made up of the board, and the 100 was, I believe, in just supplies in the general.
Okay. So it was an increase in supplies and then,
in the fire.
okay,
Which the fire territory, that could be critical. I mean, you contract with your fire districts as township trustees, so. I mean, if it's not going to break the bank, then I think we're good.
And I thought we had that in here. Jennings Township, here we go. Yeah, it was, township assistance in general was an increase of $986, and then fire was $918.
I'll call for a vote.
all those in favor? Motion carried. Okay, and to elected officials and department head comments.
Thank you for redoing that.
This is what we want to address.
So you had a concern?
Yeah, I mean,
Have comments back.
I can go after that. Are you sure?
feel like I keep getting pushed out. Based on the concerns of the public, I don't feel comfortable moving forward with the highway department transfer. And, between the trucker, and the admin, I'm asking that we hold it.
I think it needs to be looked at, and, I mean, just on a lot of, concerns that have been brought to me. And, I mean, I think it's not a, fact of, we won't have that position, it's just we're putting it on hold until we can kind of look into it further. You have anything to say, Anton, or anybody else?
So just for clarity, this involves the highway department and then the admin secretary position that was created. And there's a concern with that, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So did the commissioners actually approve, Gary, was there a vote to do the swap, or was that a Greg decision?
That was approved in the budget hearings when Greg asked for his position swaps. There wasn't an addition to an employee, it was just a swap.
Right,
But-
got it. So 23, that was a definite, we did all that, but I think the question dealt with the request that was made at the last meeting, because it was to move it up in the timeline for
Right.
22. Was
Right.
that a decision that the commissioners then made?
That I can't honestly tell you. I don't know if Greg made that decision. All I know is he posted the job.
Okay, all right. So I take it as a no, because you would have known if it was approved. Okay. Yeah, I think it's probably worth just waiting to sort through that a little bit more then, because I'd like them, if that's something they feel is valuable to that department to move up in time frame, then,
I think the reason it was Anton and Greg's thinking is we're losing several hundreds of thousands, possibly millions of dollars in lost revenue for the taxpayer because of the shortage of roads. That was the purpose of that position.
this was like the inventory issue that he was talking about?
We have a major inventory issue.
Okay. So the figure that had always been thrown around was 632 miles of roads, but that may not actually be correct
We may be
on
closer
paper?
to 850. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay,
This all took place back when they changed the 911 system. My understanding, the highway superintendent at the time hired some high school kids to do the mileage for this. And he would send out a couple of kids to drive the roads and then come back and report. And from what I've been told, Greg obviously upset and left, that it was done in Crayon. And Jim's aware of it, Sheila's aware of it. So we've got a major problem, and this was going back to like 1984. Obviously, we just went through community crossings and run into a problem back in the spring because our mapping is incorrect. The state has different numbers than what we have. So we're costing the taxpayers a lot of money.
so by having the higher inventory or the higher mileage, we would then have a better standing in the funding formula
Exactly,
from the state. Okay.
exactly.
Well, I wouldn't say that he's upset and left. I don't think that is the case.
Are you speaking for Greg?
Are you speaking for Greg?
Yeah, because I've talked to him throughout the day.
No, I'm asking you if you talk to him and understand why he left just now, because your word's no better than mine.
He was already gone. He was already gone. We had a discussion before the meeting on this.
All right, so let me ask you this. Did you have a highway superintendent quit and then come back over the weekend?
Absolutely not. He never resigned.
So there was no issue there, though? There was nothing out of the ordinary with any of that this weekend?
That
Okay.
there's no conflict of interest. There's no nepotism with this situation. There was a job posting, which is still out there with truck driver and laborer as well. There was 2 people apply, 1 person hired. It's that simple.
So, just and come back to you here, but Joel, so being new, I hit you with that last time, but, and knowing this situation, I think there's an elephant in the room here because everybody's talked about it, right? Just yes or no, any concern in your eyes over anything with the hire?
I've discussed my concerns with my constituents.
Well, yes or no, though?
I've discussed my concerns with my constituents.
And what are your constituents, can you tell me?
I've discussed those.
So I'm your.
Those concerns have been made aware. You're not gonna throw me under the bus here. I've had constructive criticism with the people I work with, constructive conversation.
No one is throwing you under the bus.
Okay.
I asked you a question. If you don't want to answer it, that's fine. Bob, any concerns?
Me?
Yeah.
Absolutely
Okay.
not.
And to finish the conversation, Bob has more than happily took over as highway liaison, and I've moved to building to pacify anybody that has concerns. But by state statute, the state of Indiana, there is no nepotism, there is no conflict of interest.
So
And our attorney's got it in the law book right out there.
I'll rest with my concerns and you guys can do what you want.
To be honest with you, I only heard of this 2 hours ago. And to be honest with you, I still have concerns because I honestly do not know what occurred, what didn't occur. I don't even know what everything's about. So in my opinion, there should be something set aside for us to, because you're not gonna simply just tell me something occurred and then not fill me in and just say everything's okey dokey. I'm sorry.
And that's all I'm asking for. Is
That's
just,
not the way I feel. You don't tell me something occurred and all of a sudden everything's okey dokey because I don't know everything. All I know is that somebody's not here that I could ask a question of and that person's not here. And that's unfair to put us into a position where I cannot ask a question of somebody. And then I'm supposed to take the word of a single person, and I'm not gonna do that. So, Andy, I don't know what your intention was, but if you would help me understand, because honestly, I don't have any information one way or the other that would give me warrant to decide one way or the other. I think there's more information that I would certainly need to know.
well, I'm confused. And Amy, maybe you can help me out.
I don't know if I can or not.
Did somebody ask Greg to give it 30 more days?
I thought that's what he said.
He has spoken to all three of us gentlemen and has not resigned. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Bob? Correct.
But did he resign on Friday night?
I don't know, you'll need to ask him. I'm abstaining from any kind of votes on this.
And that's reasonable because it's her
Mhm, right,
situation.
exactly.
Absolutely, perfectly acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
However, that's the problem we have, is we have an initial response to something that occurred and then an end statement at the end, but something occurred in between there that we can't address because that person's not here. And so to be fair, I would like the opportunity to find out exactly what happened because it's very concerning. I mean, that is a concerning issue. I mean, Greg's a great guy, and as far as I'm concerned, he's done an excellent job in the highway department. And for him to be that upset to have heard what I've heard, and again, I can't confirm or deny because he's not here, and I would like to at least speak to him, honestly. I mean, you understand where, I mean,
Well, that's fine.
You know what I'm
Table it.
saying?
I mean, I can tell you why he's upset, but it's not gonna
I
do anything.
I can understand that, but I would like to speak to him directly.
And you deserve that.
So what was your intention, Randy? Just to simply set aside the,
I'm saying over the weekend, a bunch of public concern came out, and because of it, I think we should table it.
So, but you're talking about the decision that was made, so
rescind it,
you wouldn't table it.
or put it on hold,
Okay.
what,
postpone it.
So postpone let's,
So you're saying, Chuck, allow more information to fill in the gaps.
Look, you're,
And reevaluate.
you wanna know how I feel right now as a sitting councilman? I feel like somebody just smacked me across the head with some information, and then all of a sudden I'm being denied that information simply because somebody says it's been smoothed over. That still doesn't tell me what happened over the speed bump and what happened to the vehicle.
And
And because
I can't comment because I
Because
don't
you're,
know.
and that is
I didn't-
absolutely fair, and I'm not asking you anything.
Because I didn't know he was
Because
upset, so
that
I
is
don't
the-
know why he left.
That is the appropriate response, by the way, her abstaining from
Right.
this, okay?
Right.
But my problem is that I can't go to that vehicle and learn what initiated his problem, problem. And while it may have been smoothed over, there's still, and it's important to know how we got there. And I personally don't like being side, what do they call it, snowblind or side, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a 2x4.
Fun, son.
So to me, it's a bit of a concern. I think your request is totally within realm, that we can postpone that until such time as we are satisfied as well.
Postpone I wanna make this all clear. Are we making a motion or are we?
So 23 is done, that part's set at the moment.
Mhm.
You're talking moving it up is what we're talking
Moving
about.
up the position.
So you'd have to just simply reverse and delay it to the next meeting, or?
I'm asking Andy because he initiated the request.
What are you thinking there?
I have a question, Andy. Were you talking about the entire position or just investigating? issue?
No, I think that it would revolve around the transfer of positions. So, you know, we could talk it at the next meeting and, you know, either make a decision or not, or whatever. I mean, I just think it's pretty young right now.
There's a lot of public concern that's been brought to me, to Andy, to different ones, and I think for us to be professional and to listen to our constituents and the public, I think we just need to table this, that position, if that's what you're saying, on filling that position and just until we have enough time to
Yeah.
look into their concerns. Because we can't ignore our constituents, the taxpayers, they feel,
How are you gonna give them the facts?
well, that's what we're gonna find out.
Well, let me bring this up, and again, I'm not trying to point anybody out, but something similar to what this happened earlier. And that shows an sign of it somehow, in my opinion, a sign of an infection of something. So I really would like to investigate the difference, certainly from the highway department superintendent directly from himself, and what occurred earlier this year, because I think it's symptomatic of something that if we could realize, do we actually have a problem, do we not actually have a problem? You know, I'd like to know what instituted. Furthermore, I didn't even know till a minute ago, maybe 2 minutes ago, that you had been contacted by constituents, because nobody apprised me of any of that. I'm sorry, but that phone call did not apprise me of that. It only apprised me of what the situation was that occurred over the weekend. And so,
I know, maybe you misunderstood I guess I'm not.
well, I'm talking about your and my conversation prior to this meeting. I don't recall any statement that
I wasn't
constituents
told.
were calling. And that's the worry that I have, because I would like to know if the public found out about this. You see what I'm saying? We're at a deficit post.
Social media.
Social media? Okay, you see what I'm saying? So it's out there, so
That's how we found out about it.
that's how you found out about it. You see what I'm saying? It's all a little, something really kind of it just needs to be addressed fully, that's all I'm saying. I respect exactly where you're going with that.
Social media is our source of factual information.
I don't agree with that. I think social media is very misinformation and.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, that's what you're saying.
Yes,
But
exactly.
nonetheless, that doesn't now remove our responsibility to
No,
properly
no.
investigate it. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Most definitely.
Because the
It's garbage.
moment we accept that, which is absolutely ludicrous, social media, we're wrong. But we're also wrong if we don't fully investigate and put out why the social media ended up that way. Does that make sense?
Right,
Okay.
right.
Can I have a question?
Yes.
I know it's not public comment time, and I don't talk, But just in the defense of all the taxpayers here, yes, social media sucks, things get all twisted, but when that is the only source that you have to find these things out, that's a problem. You know, if, obviously the concern is all the family members being continuously holding all these office chairs. I think there's a point where you guys need to, as council and as the government bodies, need to address that. Okay, all these issues are coming from social media, maybe we're not talking to our people enough. Because why are we relying on Owen County chatter to find out that there's another family member that's getting into a position that was a church guard position, you know, there's a line here.
Okay, let's, I understand your concern, and that's what we're going to
Yeah,
address,
so
okay?
kind of off what you said is.
I appreciate the support, and I thank you. We will look into that, and that's why I think it's important for us to investigate. My now and next question is to Andy. You want to postpone the action we took in allowing the highway department to begin looking for that position? Or I'm not sure I fully understand where we are there.
I would say that the decision that was made the last time we got together would be rescinded, then we would place the decision on hold.
Yes, sir.
I have two questions. Has that position been filled? That's my first.
I don't know, that's what,
According to Greg, yes, but it's not here.
Yeah, we can't answer that.
So Greg would have been the one that made that decision. Okay. And the second is, what are we looking at a time frame if we do postpone?
yeah, my suggestion was to reconvene at the next meeting and go from there.
Which would be October.
11, isn't it?
Mhm.
Are you making that into motion, sir?
Yes, sir.
I'll second.
Motion made by Andy, seconded by Chuck. Any other questions?
So the motion is to temporarily reverse what we did 2 weeks ago and reevaluate it in our meeting on October the 11th.
Yes, sir.
Is that correct?
That's what I heard. I heard him say rescind the decision, reconsider, and bring it back up so we find out all the facts. And that's what he requested, and I did that as a,
He only got 2 applications too.
yeah.
So here's the question I have. Where are we gonna go to find the facts? If Gary or Greg is not willing to talk to us.
Well, I don't think that there's anything that's, I mean, clearly, we're having public meetings to discuss, you know, stuff. If somebody doesn't wanna talk, then that's fine, but I think we should at least come up with the questions that are being asked on social media to us directly and stuff, and try to find out some answers.
Well, I appreciate that, because I did have some calls and I heard some things. And apparently quite contrary to what I'm hearing tonight. So I don't know.
Yeah, all I'm asking for is due diligence.
Yes.
Would there be, I'm just throwing this out for discussion, would there be any value to, since it's potentially a personnel-related issue, you know, should, out of respect of the people that are involved in that, should we not have an executive session on that? Because I don't think, if the point is really to get the facts straight, it's gonna require names to be named and things like that, and I don't think that's fair to any of the individuals involved necessarily, if we're actually serious in doing a review. So, maybe it should be an executive session, with legal counsel, you know, with Jim there. Maybe a joint session with the commissioners and discuss this issue.
I would agree with that. However, let's put it 2 ways. First, we'll have an executive session for ourselves in which we can have a separate meeting with personnel or persons in question. And then I would recommend that we get together with what they found, with what we found, and come to an agreement. I think that's probably the best way to do it.
I'll withdraw my motion, if that's what you're suggesting.
if we do I think, yeah, I'll accept your withdrawal if we do those two things, yes.
So we would, I mean, but there's still a position there that evidently has been filled, is that, I mean, how do you?
I don't know, have you been notified your office of a field?
There has been discussion in my office today, and I don't feel, given some of the discussion, that I can relate, other than there has been, a position has been offered. And if that person is taking that position, it will be before you can call an executive meeting. If, you know, I don't think it's fair to put that person on hold to, you know, either there is or there isn't a job. And if you put it on hold, then I think, again, that needs to be related to Greg immediately, so he can plan accordingly too in his department, as well as talk with the commissioners.
This has put us in a pretty big dilemma. I mean, I feel like we're kind of stuck between a
Moon pie and a half gallon of ice cream? Sorry, I thought rocket hard was.
Your way out of that one.
You know what I'm saying? Well, I'll tell you from my point of view, if anybody wasn't already speaking, was somebody already speaking? I heard somebody. Was that you, Sheila? Were you saying something? No, was somebody saying something? From my opinion, I just don't understand why this second episode occurred this year. And it's concerning, it's very concerning. Very concerning.
So if
And I think it's important for us to look at.
I do too.
I feel that we should have a meeting before the 11th, though, because that's when we gotta have this in place.
Do we not have enough time to do an executive?
We just have it before your meeting, you know, we meet at 7 on the 11th, so why not make it 6?
I make a motion that we authorize the auditor to advertise an executive session for the council prior to the meeting on October 11th with personnel concerns as the issue.
Should we have the commissioners and
No, this is the first one. We'll have a meeting with them after that.
So there's a motion on the floor, is there a second? To have an executive meeting before,
The meeting on October the 11th is at 6:30. So do you want the meeting at 6?
6 should be, 30 minutes should be reasonable enough to get some information.
so is that a motion or is that just,
It's part of the motion, if we could just get a second.
we need a second?
I'll second.
Second by Andy. Any other questions?
So the motion, though, doesn't have anything involving a temporary pause or a reversal of the decision made 2
Well,
weeks
if-
ago, so.
Andy withdrew that particular motion, so in my estimation of my good friend here, he doesn't feel it necessary, is that why you withdrew that motion, or?
No, I thought you had this motion, and so I was gonna let you proceed.
Anton, your opinion?
Well, I mean, what's the point of having an executive set or even doing anything with it if you're not actually putting it on hold? I mean,
That's fine.
that doesn't make any sense. So
Okay.
you're either, if you have a concern with it, then you put it on hold and you have your meeting, you do your review, and then you make your decision. Or you leave it the way it is, don't have the meeting, and we all move on. So there's two choices.
The only reason I say that is it's either way, we have to find out what occurred and why it's occurring. If you wish to have a postponement, so that the highway department has, council guidance, then if you're willing to make that as an amendment, I'll accept it.
Well, I guess I'll make an amendment then to make sure to reverse what we did 2 weeks ago and just put it temporarily on hold while we evaluate the situation with the executive session at 6 PM on the 11th.
And I'll accept it as a friendly amendment.
And I'd just like to say one thing also, that we need to, as the public is saying, oh, this is wrong, it's nepotism and conflict of interest and all this stuff. And seriously, I thought it would be, because he's had positions out there and I could have done a good job at those. But that seemed like that wouldn't be right to Greg and I. So there's got to be, I guess legally, according to Jim, it's okay, but we all think that, you gotta admit, we all thought it was not. That it would be a so somewhere we've got to know, you know? I mean, I wouldn't have thought that it would have been okay, would you?
I don't have enough information, to be honest with you. I got slapped with this 2 hours ago.
I'm just saying that we need to know, I mean, where we can hire, who we can hire, and where we can't. Because of conflict of interest. So, I mean, do we know exactly, it can be this person, but it can't be the boss of a boss of a boss, you know what I mean? I mean, how far?
No, we get what you're saying, but that's why the meeting needs to be held.
And
we have
then
to find out what.
we need to have that somewhere in our, so that we can tell people that we'll never let this happen again.
Would be good.
It would be good.
Call the question,
So I don't know where that goes, but
call the vote, actually.
So we've got, let's see, okay, I wanna make sure, this is, you had your motion with the friendly amendment,
Exactly.
and, okay, who was the one that seconded? Was it you, Andy, or?
No, it was Andy who said it.
Yeah,
And if the motion was by Anton, you accept
I
it.
accept the friendly amendment.
right, okay.
Then we're good, we can vote on it as an entire package.
Are we ready?
Aye.
Okay.
Can you repeat the motion? I'm sorry.
Okay.
I need to know.
They're advertising the October meeting prior to the 10/11 at 6 PM. Motion with a friendly amendment to reverse what action they took 2 weeks ago and put it on hold and evaluate following the executive meeting.
Because we're in question of what we've did. Is that correct?
We're in question what,
We're,
Outside
what occurred,
Yeah.
why it
Outside of our
occurred,
circumstances.
right,
and because frankly, to be honest with you,
you don't know what's
I personally am concerned about the public. I don't want a Marie Antoinette moment.
okay, any other questions? Do you are you good, Nick?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All those in favor?
I'm abstaining.
All those against? And one abstention.
If anybody wants to know why I voted, ask me after the meeting, because I really feel once we make a decision on the board, there's times when things that came back, I'm just not an Indian giver, and I believe this is the commissioner's call in some way. That's their department, that's their employee, and so let's leave it.
Okay, Kath, are we ready to move on? Kathleen?
You guys listened to the commissioners meeting. You guys know that I have one employee that left. I have one employee that's being moved to active duty, and he's gonna be serving overseas for up to or at least a year, starting October 1st. So that is putting me down 2. I do currently have a hiring process open. But I am bouncing around a couple ideas to be able to not replace, but fill that vacancy of our active duty member while they are gone for a year. If it was just a couple months, it wouldn't be that big of a deal, but a year is a long time to go without a person in the seat. We've been doing it, it's not fun. So a couple things that I'm kind of bouncing around ideas with is I have a previous employee that I spoke to that left for a nursing position. This person is only gonna be working 3 days a week at their full-time job and said that she would love to come back part-time. So one option that I'm thinking about is, depending on her availability, utilizing her part-time during the week to make up the hours for when my military member is going to be gone, but not to exceed 32 hours. So then that way we don't get into benefits, perf, all of that. Or hiring somebody to fill that position temporarily as a full-time person. And then whenever our military member returns, if there's not an open spot for this person, then they would go to a part-time spot. So there's logistics with that of possibly earning insurance and then dropping them from insurance. So, for my 23 budget, we only budgeted, I think it was 10,000, 15,000 something in part-time. But if this employee doesn't work pretty much the entire year, that's gonna free up a large amount of regular wages that I might want to do a transfer later from regular wages to part-time to bring this person into work no more than 32 hours a week. Does that all make sense?
So you're just wanting flexibility.
Some flexibility in it.
There's really no new staff level. The rate of pay is gonna be the same, right, for part-time?
Yeah, rate of pay is still gonna be the same as the starting base pay for
I think if
dispatchers.
she's willing to work the part-time, I think we'd be better off to do that.
Yeah, cause I think it's gonna be hard filling someone to say, hey, you can have a full-time job for,
A year,
at this point, 9, 10 months, and then you might be scaled back to part-time, so.
Chuck, did you have a,
I did, and it was just spun my ear. Is this person who's going on active duty a full-time?
Yes.
According to the rules that I know, when he returns, he has to have that full-time position.
Yeah, and that's what I'm wanting to do,
Okay,
so,
I just wanna make sure
Yeah,
because that's
yeah,
a legal requirement
Yeah.
and I don't want.
yeah,
Okay.
that's what I wanted to do to make
that's
sure.
one of the reasons I think we need to keep him part-time if we can, then.
Oh, no, I'm
Won't cost
I'm
us
with you
much
there,
money.
but I'm just going from what I
Yeah.
heard,
Yeah.
it sounded like offering him part-time and I was like, whoa, we can't do that.
No, offering my part-time, like his hours, but at a part-time.
My apologies.
Not to exceed 32 hours.
Forgive me,
a
I'm
week.
just trying to protect my brother's soldiers.
Yeah, there's been a lot of last minute clarification for me on military leave, so.
Who would have thought, right? But that's great he's doing it.
Yes,
So as far as hours cut off, you mentioned 32 in the past.
Or
Yeah,
29
there you go.
something.
I
It's-
believe 30 is what was given special, I believe, to the two health department employees earlier
Okay.
that continue with it.
I thought it was
think has to
28, to
stay-
be honest.
Yeah, 28 is what it has been, and I think
Okay,
legally it's 30, but people have held it at the 28 to make sure, like if there's overtime or
okay,
15 minutes here or there, but
Which-
32 would be with benefits.
still, okay, 32 would put it benefits.
What we did at the health department was it was 30 hours was still considered full-time.
Yeah, so 28 is, I know 28's a number we use a lot of.
For that.
Okay, so 28.
Is that
which
1456?
Still puts it 2 shifts and a little less than a half.
Yeah,
so.
1456 hours has been a pretty common maximum part-time to be
Okay.
compliant.
Okay,
But I think that's a great to do the flexibility
Yeah.
if that works.
yeah,
So,
so that is where I'm leaning towards without me pitching this to that person, cause I just thought of it after I'd spoken to
the only
them,
thing
so.
I would recommend, how soon would that person feel, what's the soonest that they might work their first part-time shift? What time frame are we talking about? A month out, next week?
It would not be next week.
Okay.
It would be at least, I would say probably at least 6 weeks,
About 6 weeks out. Okay.
is what I'm thinking.
What I would suggest we do for our next meeting is draft, because we don't have a part-time job description.
No, we don't.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
let's get one. Can you draft that based on the full-time? Let's get a draft of that, put it on our agenda for our October 11th meeting, so we can go ahead and adopt or have that on record. And then we can confirm what the rate will be. That way, when it happens, we've done it in kind of a little better order instead of after the fact,
Yeah,
if that makes sense. Okay.
So, yeah, just wanting some leniency for the end of this year possibly, and then the 23 budget with the regular wages versus the part-time and kind of moving that stuff around. So, that's all I have, unless you guys have anything for me.
Yeah, that's.
Any other elected official and department head comments? Public comment.
I have one.
Lori.
Lori Warner. At last week's commissioner meeting, Victor had videotaped the public and my 9-year-old granddaughter came with Norm to meeting, so he blasted her out to his social media site. And there is no sign on the door saying that the public will be videotaped or recorded or however you call it. And I think that's a concern. If he's going to be recording people in the public, there needs to be a sign on the door because a 9-year-old girl doesn't need to be blasted out into Victor's world. I'm concerned about that. He did not have her parent permission. In the school system, the school have to have the signed signature of the parent before they can do pictures of the kid and publish them. And he did not receive our permission or her mom and dad.
I think if we ask Victor to, from here on out, guard against putting minors, maybe put you know how they put a pixel thing on minors?
I'm not able to do that, but maybe, if you have a minor here, you can speak to me and we can figure something out.
You shouldn't be filming them, Victor. You can tell that she is not of age and she does not need to be filmed and blasted out to your people.
This is a public place.
But it's not, every place that has videotaping will have that they're being filmed, and you make a choice at that point whether or not you want to enter that.
Are you aware that there's a live stream going on right now?
And I'm aware that it is here. Yes, I watch it. How do you think I know that? I know what is being on YouTube and what you put on your site.
Madam Chairman, I think that we need to address this situation. Having a public discourse like this is probably not the best way to do it.
Right, I agree.
This is my public comment.
And absolutely, you've got every right,
And
trust me.
that's maybe something that you
We will
guys
get
can
it
talk
worked out.
after. Or, we could put the sign on the door,
I think if you were to put a sign out or try to limit that, you need to actually have a written policy that's
Okay.
debated and voted on. In the age of social media and electronic media, I think it's gonna become more of an opportunity for the public to listen in and to view the meetings, and I quite frankly agree that there should be that openness. But, as Lori mentioned, there could be situations of sensitivity, particularly with public, and maybe there can be some kind of rules of engagement or something that can be in place, but I think that has to be policy. You can't just say, we're gonna put a sign on the door.
okay.
So we got Jim right outside the door. Jim, I know you probably hiding right now, but is there any way you can look at the compliance or best practices for that sort of thing?
I can look for that, have it ready for your next meeting.
Thank you.
Sure can.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Yes.
What is the current projected budget for 2023?
The total,
Yeah.
According to the sheet that Sheila has, 17,969,208. Of course, the advertisement's gonna be higher, because we voted on that, so there's gonna be a little bit of a higher number, but that's probably not where it'll end up.
What's the projected expenditure for the county for the year, for 23?
Advertised, probably 19. Actual, probably more than 17.9.
And then what is the increase of that over last year?
I don't have that in front of me, but
Last year was 16.5, I believe,
Right, it was.
right in there somewhere.
1,525,465.
get with Sheila and there's probably some other documents she could probably get you.
And then, when will the, proposed be available for public record?
We meet with DLGF teams meeting in the morning to change and add the 4 that they had on there, and then those will be available at the soonest tomorrow afternoon. I need a little bit of time, and I can send them by email if you wanna request them that away, or I'll print out copies, but.
I appreciate that, thank you.
They did say that.
Okay, no names, none of that silly stuff, but I do want to touch on 2 things. One, the social media, as we kind of just talked about a little bit. The big thing here is, yes, we have just the regular people talking, but we also have things such as the Owen Gazette, that, you know, so-and-so left, or so-and-so did this. So there's a couple things that, yes, it is just the regular public talking, but there's some things that maybe the regular public consider to be credible sources. So when those things aren't addressed, and I'm gonna go on top of that and say we even have members that also are on social media and kind of tag on things. So when those things are tagged by our council members and we don't get much more feedback on that, that's a problem. That's where you get the uproar, that's where you get everyone, oh, we all need to get in there and get answers, because 1, we have the speculation, 2, we have the idea of what we think is going on, and then we have our council and other government bodies also putting in their personal input, which is fine because, you know, they're people. But the public is, I mean, they're still gonna see the personal post, and they're still gonna attach that with, that's my leader, you know? So it's just something that when you guys see something like that, yes, it's social media, but chances are there's a reason that people are going and at that amount of people are blasting that. The other thing that I wanted to kind of talk about was the, I just lost my spot.
If I may, however, while you're thinking of that, I wish more people would think like you do on social media. Because not only is it us, it's all of us. I mean, social media unfortunately is a horrid social disease, not classified under social disease, but it is a social disease.
And you think that, I mean, whether it was nepotism, not nepotism,
And
conflict of
that's
interest,
my other.
but I figured it was, but the position that it put Greg in,
So on the public aspect of this, we're not gonna go into names and stuff like that, but on the public aspect, if you look at what the taxpayers, the people are saying, it may not be legally wrong. There are legals, you know, like it may be perfectly legal, but ethically and morally, the people are not happy with it. This is not a one-person situation. If you go on there and you just look, it's everywhere. Owen County is plastered with it. You'll notice a lot, you've got some people running we're running on things that we're not part of that. Because honestly, that is literally everything about Owen County, that we see something going wrong. Usually it's unfortunately a family member, or unfortunately someone that's been there for, 10 years on the board, it's the length, there's a lot of things on there. So those are things that if you do pay attention to that crappy social media, you'll see that people are kind of tired of that. So even though it may not be legally wrong, the people are not thinking that's the best move.
You know, the main driver and I'm sorry. Somebody approached me and said, the council created a position for this to happen. And that really bothered me a lot. And that's why.
Madam Chairman, please allow me to import a word. We have already decided to meet about this, discussing the subject further. As much as I love you guys, and I appreciate exactly what you're saying, we have voted to meet in an executive meeting, and I think that any further discussion on that would be inappropriate.
With that being said, with the executive meeting, when will the public be made privy of what is found in that executive meeting?
That depends on what we find within that meeting and whether we determine it is necessary to release it as public information.
But that will be, because there was a motion to temporarily suspend, that will have to be another motion and another meeting to go ahead and continue that, which at that point, public comment is going to come up
Exactly.
about
I'm
what you
sure.
guys found out.
I'm sure, but it's all has to be done in, you understand what I'm saying?
I know
We
we're not
shouldn't be
done.
discussing this right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there wasn't to discuss that, it was just letting you guys know that the public had a
I'm glad, I've heard a lot of people speak, you're very well,
thank you.
on the point.
So,
I hate social media.
Sheila, it'll have.
Coming from Los Angeles, I can tell you right now, it's not as bad as it is out there, but it's still bad here.
Do we
It does.
have any more in the public that want to speak? Right. Okay, Jim, do you have anything? Sheila? Does anybody on the did you want to say something, Nick? You had your hand.
All I was gonna say is, so much as this is legal, and you have to be very careful.
Right.
People, I mean, every word we say, they come back to bite us, so we have to be very careful in
Right.
dealing with personnel.
I agree. Anybody else have anything they want to talk about?
Motion to adjourn.
Public comment.
You just had public comment.
Yeah, we had public
You just had
comment.
5 or 6 minutes of public comment.
That's what all this was.
I want to compliment you folks for taking a difficult issue.
Thank you. It's not
Have you
not
approved the
easy.
motion
Oh,
to
yes.
adjourn?